Hey everyone, I'm Chelsea Evans. I'm a furniture artist from Redesign with Prima, and in this episode, I am going to show you how to use the small decor transfers. These are awesome to use on anything small and large, and we are going to do it on a tray today. So I have this cool tray. We added a stencil to it already, and then we're going to add some transfers over the top. So I've decided to use the Rare Birds transfer. It is one of my favorites. I love the artwork in it. It's absolutely beautiful. But I want to show you how these look. There's so many different designs and they're all super fun. You can do so many fun things with them. But when you get your transfer, on the back, it will show everything that's included in the entire design. There's 3 sheets in each small transfer design, and there's usually a couple different pieces of artwork on each one. Sometimes it's one continuous sheet, so you can apply it that way, or you can break it up and cut it up, and I'll show you how to do that too. So in this design, I wanted to show you the sheets. They are just beautiful colors. These would be great on white, they'd be great on black, they would be beautiful. You could add in some blues or pinks, pull anything from the colors in the birds. I've even seen this one done on a red background, and it was stunning, just so pretty. There's these 2 birds, and then this one is a continuous design. So with that, let's decide which ones we're going to put on our tray. All right, so let's choose which birds we're going to put on here and where we're going to place them. Anytime you apply your transfer, there's a few things that you are going to want to have on hand. You want your transfer, obviously. You are going to want a burnishing tool. And these come with every transfer. So if it's a small transfer, it comes with this, or it might be a little bit smaller, but it comes with it. The large transfers come with them as well. So you want that. You want some scissors because you want to cut up your transfer. If I only want to use one bird, or if I want to place them in different places, then you want to cut it up. And then one of my favorite little tools that Redesign with Prima just came out with is the polishing pad. So these are really, really nice to use with transfers. Instead of using your tool or your hand to finally polish them and really make them adhere to the piece, you can use a polishing pad. And this makes them really adhere, stick, and look very nice. So it comes in a pack of 2. You'll need one, and you can reuse them many times over so that it'll last you a long time. It's kind of spongy and it has a little bit of a rough texture, so it's nice for applying this, especially if you do any pieces that have texture. I am a big texture person. I love texture on my pieces. I like the natural and earthy finishes, and most of those have texture. So the polishing pad is nice to be able to get in all those crevices and any uneven spaces as well with the transfer. Okay, so this has 3 sheets, and let's decide what we want. Okay, I think I'm gonna go with something on these 2 sheets. And this one I'll save for another piece. So don't ever throw away your scraps either with transfers, because you can always use them. Even if there's just one flower left, you never know when you might need a flower somewhere. I do it all the time. Okay, so I think it would look nice. I mean, we could do this transfer and go all the way up, but then my birds would be sideways if I have the tray this way. And I kind of think I like the tray set out this way. So, but I love this design. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to kind of cut this, and then I'm going to place the birds here, and then I'm going to use one of these and place this bird here in the center. So I have 3 birds, and I think that will look really nice together. And then I can show you how you can cut a transfer and still use it, okay? So let's start with this one first. All right. Now, it does have a white backing, but the transfer is applied to a clear plastic sheet. And so before you put it on, you can see exactly what it's going to look like in that space before you actually apply it to your piece. And we're starting out simple with a tray on a flat surface. So this is probably the easiest surface to apply a transfer to. So if you're doing a transfer for the first time, just use a nice flat surface. And the small transfers are a great way to start, to practice and to learn how to do it if you haven't. Okay, now this is painted. A transfer will adhere to anything that is clean and dry. So make sure your paint is completely dry. Make sure that it's nice and clean, meaning if you're applying it to a surface that you use regularly, make sure that it's clean first. You don't want any oil residue or anything like that, or the transfer might not adhere the way you want it to. If you have a piece that you've applied wax to, if it has cured if it's been on there for a year, then I would just kind of lightly scuff sand the area, and then you can apply the transfer right over that waxed area. If you've recently done it, then there's a good chance that it will repel your transfer. So best practice is to apply it to a surface that is not waxed, that is ready to adhere it, but you can apply it over top coat. So if you have a piece you've already painted and you want to add it over top, you can totally do that over the top of the top coat, and then you'll seal it again. But for this piece, we've just got some mineral paint down and it's dry and ready. Okay, so I have it cut. I'm going to peel off the back. And when I place it down, it's staying there. So take your time in placing, make sure it's where you want it to be before you stick it down. And then, all right, so we're gonna go just about right there. Okay. And I'm going to let it go, overlap my stencil a little bit and come over the top. I like overlapping things like that because I think it looks more cohesive and the design goes together. So first I'm just going to kind of take my finger, and you can see how there's a little divot in the tray right here in this line. All right, so I don't want to press this down. I want to press into the divot and then press that down. So I'm going to go there because the transfer is going to fold and shape around that curve, okay? And then I just press it down. Now I've got it in place where I want it. I'm going to take the burnishing tool that comes right with the transfer, or there is another burnishing tool that you can get from Redesign with Prima that is a plastic tool, and you can use that as well, but this one does come with the transfers. All right, and then you're just going to go ahead and start to press this design down into the area you want it. So this is called burnishing. You're basically rubbing the design and transferring it from the plastic onto your item you're placing it onto a tray in our case. Okay, then I take the edge, and you kind of just want to get that corner in there and apply it. And the top here. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now we've got it all on there. We want to make sure that it's sticking to the tray and not to the plastic. So let's go ahead and remove the plastic. Whenever I remove the plastic, I move it, I pull back slowly. If I hurry and rip it off, there's a good chance maybe I missed a spot and it's going to stick to the plastic. So I just kind of go slow. And if anything is coming up with the plastic, set your plastic back down and go back over it with your burnishing tool. Sometimes I'll even kind of continue burnishing it while I'm pulling the plastic back, just to make sure that it's totally applied. Or you can kind of slowly peel it, and if you feel like you're missing something or it's not sticking, lay it back down and do it again. It's really simple, and you just work slowly, and then you'll get a really nice design on your piece. Okay, so now it's on there, it looks great. The next thing that I always do is I take my hand and I just kind of lightly go over it, and I make sure that it's really adhered to that, okay? I'll take my plastic and I just kind of go over it one more time. This just protects my paint, protects me from scratching my paint or hurting it. Okay, now you're gonna use the polishing pad. All right, so if you look at your design, and sometimes you might need to adjust your light or tilt it a little bit, but you'll notice that when your design is completely adhered to your piece, it will be a little bit more shiny than the parts that aren't adhered. So I always kind of look at it and make sure that it has the same sheen. If there's some parts that look a little bit more dull, then you want to hit those again and burnish them more just to make sure that it's applied. But the polishing pad is perfect for doing that. because it's so flexible. So it's gonna get it in all those little crevices, uneven spaces. Even if you have brush marks, it's gonna get in between, and it's going to make it look like it was printed onto the piece, not applied as a sticker afterwards. That's what's so beautiful about them, is they actually look like they are part of the piece, which is stunning. And the details in them are just, they're amazing. They're so pretty. Even the feathers, if you look, you can see the little tiny stripes in them. I mean, tiny florals there and vines. It's just, they're really beautifully done. Beautiful transfers. Okay, there, and it's on there. So let's add our other birds and we'll make it pretty. And then when we are all done with this, I'm gonna show you how to seal your transfer so it stays on there for good. All right, so I love the way that bird looks. Let's add our other birds on. And like I said, this is a continuous piece, but I want to separate it, okay? So when I separate a transfer or cut a transfer into parts, I kind of look at the best place to cut that will make it look seamless. So it won't look like I cut it off and only have half a flower or half of a bird or something like that. So in this case, I think right here, there's these 3 little flowers and the stem that comes there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut right in between, okay? And I can cut right into the transfer, okay? And then we'll separate. So this one, that's perfect. It ends seamlessly. It looks like it was meant to be that way. And then this one, we got a stick coming out. I think that looks all right. So I could leave it like that. Or if I didn't love the way that looked, guess what? I can just trim off that little part of the branch right there. And then I have another seamless transition that looks like it was made that way. And then I can kind of place them and decide where I want to put them, and then we will apply them. And you can also overlap the transfers. So I'm gonna overlap those just a little bit so they kind of look continuous. Our florals just overlap a little bit. If you overlap a transfer, just make sure that you burnish it extra well, because it's going to adhere to the painted surface better and quicker than it will over top of a transfer. Just make sure that you burnish it really well, and then it will transfer right over the top of another transfer. All right, so we have our birds all applied to our tray. I love the way it looks. We even took one of the transfers a little bit up the side there, because you can bend and shape your transfers, and I'll show you more about that coming up. But for now, we've got it all on there and I love it, but I want to seal it, because if I leave them just like this and I never touch it or I don't use it much, they would be fine. But I'm gonna use this tray and I want to put things on it. And over time, those might break down if I don't seal them. So you can use any water-based sealer to seal them in. You can also add paint over the top or glaze. So there's a lot of times when I want a transfer to kind of blend into my piece, or maybe peekaboo behind some texture or some rust or something like that. And so you can totally take your paint and kind of camouflage it or hide a little bit, paint over it. And you can use glaze as well. The only things that you don't want to apply right on a transfer is anything that's wax. So anything that might break down the transfer over time, you want to avoid. So you want to use a water-based sealer. And then after you've applied that, if you want to add a little bit of a dark wax or one of the metallic waxes, the gilding wax from Redesign with Prima, then you can do that over top of your water-based top coat, and you can add that in then. All right, so I'm just gonna take my water-based top coat, and I am just gonna go right over this tray and right over the transfer, okay? And the nice thing too is the transfers have that little, it's called a halo, it's just like a little bleed line. And burnishing them when you're applying them will help that to fade, but also when you apply your top coat, that bleed line, the halo, is really going to disappear. So that also helps besides sealing your transfers, okay? Now I typically do 2 coats of a water-based top coat over my transfers. And then that's going to help seal them in and protect them. They won't scratch or tear and they won't break down. And then I can have this tray forever and use it. And I'm going to have my beautiful designs on there and they will stay put, whether I just put a little decor on there, maybe some books, or if I decide I want to put some drinks on there, or maybe a few little treats for my guests, I can totally do that. And it's not going to hurt my transfers. Here we are. So we're all sealed up. I think that looks beautiful. It gives it a little bit of shine. I know they're protected and I still have more transfer. So I can take this and add it to something else. If I wanted to match this, I could even add one of the birds to like a glass vase or something and then have it by the tray. That would look amazing together. So get creative and go make yourself something pretty with these small transfers. We are going to work on this cool, funky nightstand. This is our $14 find that we found at a thrift store. And so far we've got her painted, we've got some stenciling done, we've got decoupage on the sides of the drawers. So there's a lot of cool stuff happening and we're gonna add just a little bit more. So we're going to use the Mono Tulip transfer. I love this transfer because it is monochromatic, black and white. Super simple, it's fun. You can add it to something really colorful like we're doing now, or you can add it to a solid color and it is stunning. So let me open it up and show you. The large transfers come in a tube like this, and it will show an example of how the transfer was used on a piece of furniture. And then it will also show you all of the sheets that are in the transfer. So the large transfers come in different sizes. This transfer has 2 sheets in it, but some transfers will have 3 sheets, 4 sheets, or even 6 sheets, and they can be really large transfers. You can use the large furniture transfers on furniture, but you can also use them on walls. I put one in my bathroom, just on the bathroom wall, and I have this beautiful floral artwork on my wall, and it looks like it was painted. It's absolutely beautiful. So get creative and think about what you can do. You can even put transfers onto glass, onto like those antique old windows that you find. These are really cool on those. And you can put them on mirrors, which I'll show you in a little bit. But let's get started with this nightstand. So when you open up your transfer, you are going to find the transfer sheets inside, and you will also get a burnishing tool. Each transfer comes with the burnishing tool right here. And then these are the 2 sheets in this design. Now, some designs will be continuous designs, okay? So that means they are going to have maybe half a floral here, and then on the next sheet, the floral will continue. And so you match the designs up, and you apply one at a time, and then when you're all done, it will match up and create the whole picture. On this design, this is a little bit different. So I can place these and cut them out and use them however I want, because they're kind of each their own individual artwork. So this is really nice for a piece that maybe you want to use a little bit of the transfer here and there. You can easily piece it out and design your own look, make it flow the way you want it to. On some of the other designs that are continuous, you'll kind of want to plan out your design where the piece will cover your whole thing and you can match it up as it goes. All right, so I want to place this on the top and then just kind of coming down the side a little bit. So the first thing I want to do is make sure I have all the tools that I need, okay? And here's what I get out when I'm working on a transfer. I always have scissors. You'll need them. You obviously need your burnishing tool. I grab my polishing pad as well because I'm going to want that. I also grab a permanent marker because you can write on the transfer with your permanent marker and kind of draw out where you want to cut the transfer. That way you don't have to cut the transfer and think, oh, I think I need to cut it there. You can actually mark it, and I'll show you how to do that. And then I also have some painter's tape with me, so if I am working on a vertical surface, I can kind of tape the top of it and maybe the side a little bit in place so the transfer will stay as I slowly apply it to the piece. So always have those things handy and then you will be golden. So let's mark it first, okay? Now this transfer is pretty easy to cut and I don't have to do a lot of marking because they're kind of separate pieces, right? But if it was one continuous piece, like I'll show you, I'm going to cut part of this flower, I definitely want to mark it, okay? So I just want to use the floral part. So guess what? I can take my little marker, even if I can draw right over the transfer, it's not going to hurt or affect it in any way. So I can kind of take my marker and then I have a guide where I need to cut it. And then I'll kind of decide, how far I want to go down the side here and where I want to cut it. And I think we will use this part and then I'm going to kind of make a little peak right there. And we are going to use this part here. And then the rest of it, I will set aside and save it for something else. But now I have a nice guide, makes it really easy for when I'm cutting it and I know what I'm doing. I know where to cut. Okay, so let's go ahead and cut that out. And then I want it to look finished. So I'm going to kind of go right down that line here and right to that leaf peak. That way it will look like it was meant to be that way. Let's see. Okay. And then the rest of it, I'll just cut on my guide and follow that around. So I can set the rest of my transfer down. And we will cut out the top. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to cut right on the lines. All right. Set my scissors aside. Oh, make sure that you leave that plastic on. Sometimes the plastic will start to come off, which is nice because it's going to adhere to your piece really well. So make sure you keep these together because this side's waxy and it's going to help keep that transfer separated from anything it might stick to, okay? All right, so now we've got our design trimmed out the way we want it. So we can kind of match it up and decide, do we want it to go down this side or do we want it to come here and come across? All right, so we are going to apply the transfer right here. I like the look of this and I like how those leaves are just kind of slightly fold over the edge or the front edge of my piece, and that will kind of bring the transfer from the face of this piece all the way over to the top. All right, so I get it where I want it. Double check your side and make sure that's where you want it to hang. And then I'm just going to use a little bit of the painter's tape and secure it so that it doesn't move on me. Let's see, just like that. So I just use a little bit. You don't need a lot. And I'm only using it on the top. Okay, so now I've got it placed. I know where I want it. Now we're going to take off the backing and we're going to actually start applying the transfer. Now, if you are working on a surface that has a lot of texture or that has parts that stick out farther than others, then you want to work in small sections on removing the back and applying the transfer. The more comfortable you get with transfers, then you might feel comfortable taking off the whole back and kind of holding it out and applying part. But I'm going to show you how we're just going to take off part of the backing, okay? So I'm going to leave that one piece of tape on, and we are going to pull away some of our backing, okay? And I'm just going to go to right there. All right, so I can either fold it and then continue pulling it down, or I can just cut away some of that backing. And that way I can start on a flat surface with part of it. And then when I'm ready, I can peel off the rest of the backing and slowly work the transfer down my piece. All right. That way I don't have to worry about the transfer getting stuck to part of it if, let's say, the dresser curved outward or something. So it just gives me a little bit more control on what happens with that transfer, okay? So from here to here, our backing is gone, and we're going to use our burnishing tool and just go ahead and start applying the transfer. The same with small transfers. You want to make sure that your surface is nice and clean, freshly painted, but completely dry. Or you can put it over the top coated surface, but you don't want to put it right over top of a wax surface. Okay, so that is on there. Pretty good. Now I'm just going to take my tool and we're going to hit that corner, and then we're going to bring that right down the front of our piece. Okay, there we go. And the same thing, this little piece here. Okay, yeah, perfect. I know those are on. All right, and this is stuck well enough that I am comfortable pulling off this backing. So I'm going to peel it. And I'm just going to pull it down to right there, to the edge of the dresser. And then I'll kind of just let it hang, or I can fold that backing so that I know that that part hanging off isn't going to stick to anything I don't want it to. But if you like taking the backing all the way off and doing it, you totally can. That's typically what I do, but I've done a lot of transfers, so I'm very comfortable with it. So it just depends on your level of comfort, okay? All right, so I want to apply all of the flat surface first. Make sure it's really on there well. Okay, and now I'll go ahead and I will start working my way down. Now I have a piece that's going to go down this side, and I have a little leaf here that's going to go down the front side, okay? So I could apply this, and then I could fold the leaf and do that side, but I've got scissors. So keep your scissors handy, and if you can kind of cut and give that transfer more flexibility, then you are going to have a better chance at getting a more clear design. So I just do a little slice in it. That way I can fold this leaf down this way, and then I can fold the rest of it down this way, and I don't have to worry about it wrinkling or being difficult at all. And I will apply this side first, and then I'll come back and I'll fold that little leaf part over. Now, as I'm showing you here, you can go over unlevel surfaces with a transfer. And the transfer will create a beautiful design going down. Sometimes you might get a little crack in between an uneven surface or something. I really like that. I feel like it makes the artwork look more authentic and aged. And sometimes I'll even take a little bit of fine grit sandpaper and just sand it a little bit and almost distress it. And I really like the way that that looks. So it's just preference, but keep in mind, sometimes you might get a little bit of a crack on an uneven surface. So as long as you know that and you are prepared for that, then you will be all right. I always say, just let it do its thing. Let it do what it's gonna do. Like, it's gonna do what it's meant to do, and it will be beautiful. All right. You can use your tool too, like I showed, to get right in those crevices. Make sure it's adhered really well before folding onto the next surface. So if I have a surface like this where it's slowly going down the piece, I just slowly work my way down the piece until I get to that bottom fold. It's like a stairway, right? You're going to slowly go down the stairs. You're not going to take them all at once. You're going to work your way down those stairs to get a really nice design all the way down. And then guess what? We've got a raised stencil here. We're gonna apply it. You can do it over raised surfaces. So you might need to manipulate your tool just a little bit to go all the way around that raised stenciling. And sometimes I'll use my finger too and kind of get in there. Corner of the tool, the edge is great for that. And then I'll kind of just check it. Okay, and that's adhered really well. Okay, so if I start pulling and I feel like I'm pulling up on my transfer or it's sticking to the plastic more than my piece, set it back down and burnish it a little bit more. That's the easiest fix right there, is just set it back down and burnish it more. Okay, so now that I've got that applied, I am going to do this front leaf here and this leaf here, okay? So I think we should bring this leaf in first, and we could overlap them. Oh, see, look, okay, this is a great example to show you guys. I pulled the transfer away and part of a leaf wasn't totally attached to my piece. All right, so here's how I'm gonna fix it. I can see that the transfer's pulling, right? So I've got my scissors and I'm just gonna do a little snip right here to release that tension from the transfer, okay? And then I'm going to take this and you know what? I can try and line it up, or since it's just that one little leaf, I'll just cut it off, okay? And then I'm going to line it up, and then I will go ahead and apply it. There we go. There, so problem solved. You can always lay it back down and attach it. Okay, and then right here, kind of the same. I'm just gonna cut this off here. Okay, to release that tension. And then I can kind of just pull my transfer around. And it's got a little wrinkle in it. That's all right. I'm gonna go ahead and apply it. Just right through. I'm not gonna mess with that right now. I'm just gonna apply it where I want it. I'm kind of like working blindly.
Oh, okay. You need to get off the chair for this part.
No. Okay, good. Okay, all right, so I've got it on there. Now I'm gonna take my finger and just kind of press it into the crevices, okay? And this transfer, it doesn't need this extra really. I mean, because it's going around that curve and it kind of changes the shape of it anyways. All right, so what am I gonna do with that extra? Okay, I am just going to cut it off. So I'm actually just gonna use my burnishing tool. I just make sure that it's nice and flat to my piece. And then I'm just going to let that kind of distress. There we go. And you can't even tell that there was a big fold in it. Now I can take some sandpaper and distress it a little bit more if I want to. If I want to connect that leaf, I could take a tiny bit of paint and just put a little line there and it would look completely seamless. But that's why I say, keep in mind that sometimes on a really uneven surface, it might not transfer absolutely perfectly, but make it what you want it to. Because perfection's overrated. And it still looks amazing. It looks so awesome how it just curves and kind of hugs that shape. I love it. I love it. Okay, so we just have this part of the leaf left. Now this one, we also want to just release that tension. And actually, I'm just going to come and cut in all the way to right there. okay? Now, before I lay it down, I'm gonna kind of pull it and see, where is that gonna lay when I pull that down, okay? And then I'll slowly work down my steps just like we did before. Take my tool and go down the steps. Just like that. Okay, and then I have one more uneven level right here. I'm just gonna show you. I'm just take my scissors and I'm actually just gonna cut that leaf in half right there. And I need a little bit here. Ease up. And I can wrap that right around. Perfect. So start with a flat surface when you're applying a transfer, and then the more comfortable you get with it, you can start doing uneven surfaces. Okay, so let's remove the top. I'm gonna take off this tape. We don't need it anymore. There we are. Okay, and then we'll slowly peel it back. And I think we could call this piece our desert floral because we've got some beautiful, almost like Arizona sunset, all the way up to a black and white, beautiful tulip design. And then I can come in with other parts of the transfer and I can add more of these little black and polka dotted leaves, or I can add more tulips, or I can save it for another project. Okay, and now I'm gonna take my polishing pad and we'll just slowly go over it just to make sure it's completely applied. If your transfer isn't adhered to the piece, if you have any bubbles in it, or if you have any wrinkles, and you apply top coat, it could cause issues with the transfer later on. So be sure that your transfer is totally smooth and adhered to your piece before you apply your top coat. You can use any water-based top coat to seal it with. And then if you want to add any decor wax, metallic, anything like that, you can do that after you've applied your top coat. I typically apply 2 coats of a water-based sealant over the top of a transfer to seal it. All right, there she is. All right, so we added a little bit more of the transfer to this piece just to kind of tie the top down through the whole piece. And I just took some of the cool branches from it that have the little tiny polka dots and brought them down because I felt like that tied in nicely with our bright stenciling and bright colors. And then it's one cohesive piece and we are ready to get her sealed. So we'll put some water-based sealant on this and it will be good to go and will last for years. I am going to show you how to apply a transfer to a mirror. So this is a great one to watch because I'm going to show you how to apply it to a mirror, and the same concept applies to glass, and also how to bring it over the edges and apply it to the wooden frame as well. So we are going to be using the Beautifully Native transfer from Redesign with Prima, and I'm just going to use a small part of the transfer. This is a really beautiful transfer and it has 3 sheets in it. So it has some really cool skulls with florals and some feathers on it. It has some arrows in it that are really pretty. And then it has 2 smaller skulls and then a really large one in the center. And you can see one of the antlers that come off of that. So it matches up on all 3 sheets. And we are going to use this little guy today. So let's cut him out and then we'll apply it to our mirror. So I have my scissors handy in case I need them. And I've got some painter's tape that I'm going to use. So let me grab some of this. And this will just help me kind of hold that transfer in place while I apply it, especially where I'm applying it over a surface that has different levels. I'm just going to grab off 2 pieces, set them to the side. And then I have my burnishing tool and I also have my polishing pad, all right? So let's take him and kind of see where we're lining up. And I want as much to show as I can on the different surfaces. So you can still see all the way those antlers, all the way to the ends of the antlers, okay? When you apply it to glass or mirror, you just want to make sure that the surface is clean and free of any oils or residue. And I'm actually going to take off my backing all the way, all right? Now, once you stick it onto glass, it's going to stay in the same spot. So where you might be able to kind of fudge with like a painted surface or a wood, glass is a little more ready to grab that transfer. So just be mindful of that when you are placing it. So I kind of hold it tight so I don't have anything wrinkling and catching the glass by accident. And then I'll make sure we're nice and vertical. I can look at the lines that are printed on the large transfer, the measurement lines, and then I can see if that is parallel to my line here. And that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and lay down that part onto the glass first. Okay, and I'm just going to go to there. There's still some space. This isn't stuck down yet, so I'm going to leave that for a second. And I'm going to burnish this part in so it will stay in place, and then we'll slowly apply it all the way up. So remember, as I said before, just work in your steps, one at a time. All right, so we'll get it applied to the mirror. All the way across here. Okay. All right. And I'll come over to this side. Okay, and then we're right at the edge there. Make sure from the top to the bottom to the top, we're just working up to the edge. Okay. So I know that that is stuck to the mirror. I'll burnish it a little bit more to make sure that I have the adhesion I want, but I know this isn't going to move, so now we'll start working upwards. So here's where you want to have your scissors handy, because I'm going to make some cut marks. This is going to make it easier. We've got a round surface here, we have a different surface here, so let's make our little cuts and give our transfer some more mobility. Okay, and moving around these edges. So I'll just kind of come between some of these surfaces. If I have a bunch of excess, I'll just go ahead and kind of trim that off so that's out of the way and I don't have to worry about those pieces. Trim this a little bit here. All right, so let's start with our first step here. And bring that transfer along that edge. All right, and since this is cut, I have the flexibility to just keep going with this section here, so I don't have to go all the way across that step. I'm gonna go ahead and just apply this piece so I know that it's on there really well. And if you look close, you can see it's more cloudy here and it's more transparent here. So that means that my transfer is adhered to the mirror right here, but right here, it's probably still kind of hanging on to that plastic. So let's burnish it a little bit more. I can see right along this edge it's cloudy, so I know we're good there. And we're gonna come up this step, and we're gonna get that on there. Okay, perfect. Now I know this is really on there well, and when I pull the transfer back, that center section is probably going to be just fine. Okay, so I'm going to cut this plastic off here because it's already applied right there, just so it doesn't pull the weight down of the top of the plastic, and I don't have to worry about it. And then I'm just going to slowly work across and apply the rest of our transfer. All right, so it's all done except for our last antler, okay? So let's pull this back so we can get that plastic out of the way, and all we have is this little tiny piece of plastic we have to deal with. It'll make it a lot easier. So we'll just kind of slowly pull back. And reveal our transfer. That is going to be so pretty. So you will have a little bit of the halo or that bleed line that I talked about on transfers on a mirror that will show. You could go over that with like a little bit of glaze if you wanted to kind of camouflage it, or you can leave it. There we are. And then do you need to seal it? That is up to you. So I have a mirror that hangs up on the wall, and I don't use it a ton. And I'll just very gently clean it. So when I clean it, you know, with a window cleaner, I'll clean the whole thing, and then I'll kind of just gently wipe around or wipe over it, and it's been totally fine. If it's a mirror you're going to use a lot more, then you probably want to use a water-based top coat, and you can just kind of apply it right over the transfer and just barely over that halo edge, and that will seal it in. So just kind of at your discretion decide if you want to do that. A lot of times people will add these to antique windows and hang them on the wall as wall art, and those look amazing too, and they leave them as is and don't seal them. Okay, so let's cut one more time. So all we have left is this little piece that we haven't applied yet. Okay, make sure that leaf's on there. Okay, and make sure we go up with our feather. Okay, and then we'll just go right up the steps here. Let's see, what about there? So I let the transfer crack just a little bit right there. I can leave it like that. I can distress it a little bit more and give it that nice distressed look, which I think is a great look, especially for the beautifully native transfer. Or I can take just a tiny bit of paint in kind of a brown and put a tiny dab there, and then it will be totally flawless. So it's really up to you and what you prefer. So I am just working in a very small area right now to kind of bring these antlers up and over this bulby area. So you just work in really small sections. So don't try and just apply the whole thing. And then if it's not flexing the way you want it to, if you need to change something, then grab your scissors and just make those little tiny cuts to give you that flexibility that you need to apply it. All right, so after I have it applied, I'm going to use my polishing pad, and we are just gonna go over the whole thing and make sure that we don't have any little bubbles and that it's completely transferred onto my mirror. And this is nice because I can go right over the glass, right over the mirror. And I always kind of listen. So if you're careful and you don't have your music on too loud, you can hear if you've got any little air pockets or air bubbles, and you can take your pad and just go over that a couple times and it will work those out. So it's always good to just check for that and listen for that and catch them before you add any top coat or sealant over the top. All right. Now, when I do transfers, I like to distress them. I really like the look of that. If you don't have to, but it is an option. So sometimes I will take some fine grit sandpaper, 220 or higher, don't go any lower than that, that's too coarse. And I'll just kind of catch maybe the edges of my furniture or any beveled edges and just distress it a little bit. And I think it kind of makes the transfer look more like it existed on the piece and it wasn't added later. So it's totally up to you, but you can do that if you want to, and then you'll seal it up.